Bueno, bienvenidos al día 3 de nuestro 23 Seminario Internacional de Aprendizaje y Servicio Solidario. Welcome to day 3 of our 23rd International Service Learning Conference. I will give you some information in Spanish first, and then I will go back in English. Bienvenidos, como les decía, al número 3 de nuestro seminario. La verdad que queremos agradecerles a todos cómo nos están acompañando en este espacio donde la verdad que si bien nos sorprendió el número de personas que se inscribieron, también nos sorprende gratamente la cantidad de personas que nos están acompañando en cada una de las sesiones que venimos desarrollando en estas jornadas. Los números van creciendo porque ustedes saben que si bien estamos transmitiendo las sesiones por YouTube, todas las sesiones están quedando grabadas, por lo tanto los números van creciendo, y ya podemos decir que ya estamos fácil por las 4.000 visualizaciones de la jornada inaugural y tuvimos más de 100 personas en cada uno de los talleres, pero que estos números, como les decía, siguen creciendo a partir de la cantidad de personas que se pueden sumar a este espacio de aprendizaje e intercambio. Ayer tuvimos sesiones muy interesantes donde pudimos escuchar a distintos especialistas sobre la importancia justamente de la solidaridad para educar en y para la solidaridad, con Alberto Croce, Joseph Puig, Lynn Brandenson, Axel Rivas, que nos dejaron interesantísimas reflexiones. Y después tuvimos la suerte de, como en los seminarios, cuando uno se sienta justo en la mesa de al lado donde están los especialistas, bueno, pudimos escuchar un café entre Nieves Tapia, Carol Ma, Andrew Furco y Rosa Batle, donde pudimos escuchar cómo compartían entre ellos cómo habían sido sus inicios con el aprendizaje de servicio y en este camino tan fascinante que nos permite a nosotros aprender mucho de su propia experiencia. A la tarde también tuvimos sesiones simultáneas. En las sesiones de ayer, como muchos de ustedes pudieron participar, fueron organizadas en distintos niveles educativos, y hoy vamos a tener un formato similar. En unos minutos vamos a tener una recorrida por el mundo del aprendizaje-servicio. Ustedes saben que la virtualidad nos permite acercarnos a distintas regiones y conocer cómo se viene implementando el aprendizaje-servicio y quienes lo vienen promoviendo en regiones como Europa del Este, África, Asia, América Latina. Y esto nos va a permitir también conocer quiénes son los que están promoviéndolo en cada una de estas regiones. Y en el segundo panel vamos a poder escuchar las experiencias de los protagonistas, las experiencias de los estudiantes a partir de experiencias que fueron reconocidas en distintos países. Por la tarde vamos a tener también sesiones simultáneas para aquellos que pudieron inscribirse con anticipación. Y en este caso particular, a partir de las 2 de la tarde, también van a poder ver por YouTube el taller de cómo desarrollar proyectos de aprendizaje-servicio virtual, sobre todo en estos tiempos de pandemia. Los invitamos también para que marquen a las 4:30, volver a encontrarnos, 4:30 hora argentina, volver a encontrarnos para el plenario de cierre de nuestro seminario. Por último, algunos consejos prácticos. Muchos pidieron la bolsa de materiales, que ya está disponible en la página del seminario. Recuerden, seminario.clays.org. Desde allí van a poder descargar la bolsa de materiales y van a poder también recorrer los pasillos virtuales que preparamos especialmente para que, bueno, puedan compartir experiencias con otros, puedan dejarnos las fotos, hacerse los abrazos virtuales que tanto nos gustan. Y también recuerden que cualquier consulta a través de la página y de las distintas redes sociales, ustedes van a poder ir participando en todas las sesiones. Now I will give the information in English. Fortunately, we are having a lot of friends from all over the world who are joining us in the different sessions. The YouTube channel is in English for all of you to follow with interpretation. So if you follow the directions that you will find in our website, seminario.clays.org, you will be able to access to the YouTube channel in English to follow the sessions here in the morning that will devote it to learn about service learning around the world. We will have friends and colleagues from Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and you will be able to learn from the key representatives of each region how they are developing service learning strategies from there. And in the second panel, we will be able to listen to experiences from the key participants, students' voices from awarded experiences of different countries. In the afternoon, for those who have already registered, we will have the simultaneous sessions. And from YouTube, we will also share a workshop for how to develop virtual service learning, and that will be open for those who want to attend at least the first part that we will be introducing the topic. Last but not least, remember to pick up your bag in our website and to visit the different hallways where you will be able to share experiences, share pictures, memories, and all that you would like to share whenever we meet in this kind of conferences. So thank you for joining us and for sharing all these presentations that we will leave in YouTube for you to share then with your partners, with your students, with your friends. And now let's go for the next session. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos y bueno, que disfruten una nueva jornada de este 23 seminario de aprendizaje y servicio solidario. Espero no haberme olvidado de nada.
Welcome all to this meeting among colleagues to reflect together on the development of service learning around the world. Today, we have with us colleagues that are going to share with us what they are doing in the field of service learning. We have with us Edina Malkic, representing the Central and Eastern European Service Learning Network and the MIOS organization. We also have with us Beatrix Bouwman, Bibi, from South Africa, from the Northwestern University. I'm going to share my screen so that you can identify the different panelists who are going to join us for this session. We also have Marietta Guanzon from the Salle University and the Service Learning Asian Network. We also have with us Timothy Stanton from Stanford University in the United States, and Enrique Ochoa, who is the Executive Director of CLAYSS. We would like to thank you all for being with us today, especially for taking the time to help us answer the 4 questions that you see here now on the screen. When and how was service learning spread in your region? When did the network you belong to started operating? What definition of service learning you manage in your region or country? Because as you know, service learning is a methodology that is well developed in many regions of the world, but it has its peculiar characteristics depending on the region or the country. And we would also like to know what kind of experiences represent the priority issues in your countries and how you are implementing service learning. As we have already said, you received these questions in advance, so we would like each of you to share some thoughts around these questions. So we are ready to listen to you. Let me ask Edina Malkic from Bosnia-Herzegovina to take the floor, and let me introduce her. She's a well-known person to us all in CLAYSS, but she is the Executive Director of MIOS, that is an organization that works in Bosnia and Herzegovina and also in Serbia and Croatia. She focuses on this network as a focus of excellence for school institutional development and vocational training of teachers. Her vision is to have service learning as a core part of the educational system, and also to have the deep engagement of everyone in the community. She works with organizational development of schools on different teaching and evaluation proposals. She has a degree in pedagogy and psychology, and she's now in a PhD program on pedagogy, where the pedagogy of service learning is a comprehensive way of teaching, and service learning is the highlight of her thesis. She is currently working also at the Tuzla University as an assistant in one of the subjects in the program. Her passion for teaching and teaching methodologies promoted by service learning are her main field of interest, and throughout her career she has sought to implement innovative approaches to teaching and different ways of sharing the learnings acquired in this context, promoting the impact of service learning as a methodology to provide answers to the most complex questions. We can also say that throughout her career, she has focused on the role of community schools, promoting high-quality educational opportunities to people of all ages, and she also believes that networking, exchange of experiences, and best practices is one of the most efficient ways of promoting learning, overcoming prejudices. And she also thinks that she can have a major contribution to the development of community schools through her network and in another network in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Edina can take the floor. Go ahead, Edina.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy, and it's such an honor for me to be online on your event and your conference. Last time when I was participating, it was in Buenos Aires, in a beautiful city, but circumstances and life changes. So here we are trying to make best of the situation that we are in right now. So today, I thank you for the introduction. As you said, I work in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I live here in Tuzla, in a small city, and in a small organization that really wants to give contribution to the community, to the education, which is one of the pillars of society and development and things that we want to have in the future. So today I will shortly present a little bit what's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina with extension to the regional part of Central and Eastern Europe. So in my case, who we are, Rosie said a lot, but I will say that we started and we are still promoting concept of community school which is totally immersed within the community with the full engagement, with a strong connection, connection with the resources and social capital in the idea. And we are trying to live this concept with schools through different kind of education, networking, consultancy, or other ways to support schools so that they can live this vision. On two levels, our work, we cannot only work with the teachers and not work with the management. So we work on several levels, trying to give broader picture what community school is about and how we want to live it through the days. And on the other side, a quality of teaching and what children are learning and what they are gaining from education is also important aspect. So we combine efforts with other partners to make this change. And we provide different programs, especially for the teachers' development. As you can see here in the presentation, I will not name them separately, but we seek either through our competencies or competencies of our partners to support teachers and schools to the themes which are very present and color the life of the school. For example, pandemic situation which we have now, we connect with the partners who can provide some support, insights, or anything which schools needs to live, fully live and do their mission. Why service learning? In the concept of community school, there's always constant search how to do teaching better, how to connect it more with life, how to connect it with things that are happening outside of the classroom. So in searching this kind of ways, methods or tools, we found out that there is a service learning methodology or pedagogy, and we said, let's try it, let's pilot it. What were the reasons for that? We needed a better way how to ensure this comprehensive way of learning in the formal education setting. There's a constant feedback or information that there's a lack of experience in the process of learning. It's more like a gaining the information rather than trying, testing, getting it through all the senses. This poor connection between why do I need learning, why do I need this content with life that is happening outside of the school. So how do we connect these things, how to make it happen? And there's a constant, in our evaluation and in our work, there's a constant need for deepening this learning with teachers, which service learning also gives a good answer in terms of working together, like colleagues, connecting content, connecting the way how we fulfill the outcomes of the learning. And in context where I live and work, this is one of the greatest challenges. PISA testing from 2018 showed us that very clearly now, and we know what should be the next steps. Our first connection with the service learning happened 2009. In this search, what, where, how, we came into the contact with the Freudenberg Foundation Service Learning Fund, now known as Stiftung Lernen durch Engagement from Germany, and they told us this is something worth researching, this is something maybe you can pilot. So we introduced service learning to the first cohort of teachers from Bosnia, from Serbia and Croatia. And that was a shock for them at that time. We took a lot of time to and patience to demonstrate what it means to work outside of the school, what it means to have full student participation, how to connect, and is it possible to connect curriculum, outcomes, and content with something that is a service provided by children. And why this is a challenge, because there is a certain characteristic in our educational systems of 3 countries, which is more like program oriented rather than outcomes and children oriented, let's say. So in years after 2009, we continued to develop it, offer to more schools and to more teachers. From 2015, we also involved secondary schools with a little bit connection with the university level. We, in cooperation with CLAYSS, we offered some trainings for university teachers as well. Basically, we fell in love with the service learning. It was tough for sure, but we were sure and we understood that we are changing the whole culture, how we see learning process of the children, what is experiential in all of that. And we believed, and all the research that we were able to get showed us. So as of 2016, we are in very close cooperation with CLAYSS and delivering and working on service learning dissemination in Central and Eastern Europe, which was amazing job and work, and still is. We found out that we are not the only one, and that there's, first of all, CLAYSS doing something like that for so many years. Then there's a lot of organization from Romania, Albania, Kosovo, Slovakia, Serbia, Croatia as well, a part of us, who are doing something around that, talking about that. There are some examples, and now we connected a lot of dots, a lot of partners, and we are working on many different and wonderful aspects of promotion service learning in Central and Eastern Europe. In terms of how do we use service learning as a terminology in our context and our language, we said we will use service learning, and we translated to our language, not so much like service naučenje. And we did it intentionally because there are different approaches, different programs which are really in the context of civic education, children doing humanitarian work for somebody outside in the community, or children are doing like good job preserving nature and stuff. But when you come to the learning and what is in the formal education, what children really needs to do while they are in the school, we didn't see any connection. So not to just sink in something that is already in our ecosystem of educational initiatives and the project, we said for now we will use this same terminology. And for the schools, to be easier to understand and connect with the teaching styles and what's happening in the school, we said it's a form of teaching process that combines school learning and solving real challenges with the local community. And from there, we start to like putting the layers, what actually needs to be done to say we are doing service learning. Our teachers often say, yeah, we are doing that. We did that last month. But when we go deeper into understanding, for example, this connection between curriculum and what's going on in the service part, or what it means to have students' full participation in service learning, then we see the quality differences from other initiatives or other things that they do in their school. How am I with the time? Do I have, okay? So yeah, basically that's it. But I want to, since I have a time, I want to share a little bit more about this regional context. My organization is creating the network of schools in my country which are connected about the same topic, service learning. On the other side, as I said, in a great support with CLAYSS, we connected with different non-governmental organizations from the region, Central and Eastern Europe, and they are working in different areas of society, introducing service learning as one way to enhance quality of life, enhance learning, or what we need to develop as a students, youth, or teachers along the way. So we have up to 10 organizations who are actively participating in the network, which is not yet formal, but so far we did several service learning weeks in Bosnia, in Slovakia, in Romania. We also did translation of a lot of resources from CLAYSS to local languages. So it's not only in English, but it's in Bosnian, in Slovakian, and other languages that are present in the network. We also, which we are very proud because it's still in the process of evaluation, we established a Service Learning Award, regional award, and now we are evaluating the first applicants from this region, and we are very proud to manage it. It's a very joint team effort between all the organizations and with the strong support of CLAYSS. And we are planning many more things in this region. It's only this pandemic that's the problem for putting our energy a little bit lower to make this big energy and adventure with, and the community, develop community of service learning in this part of the world. This is what I had intention to share. And I'm more than happy to answer the questions or clarify things when time comes in our panel session. Thank you very much.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Edina, por tu presentación.
Thank you, Edina, for your presentation. Of course, at the end, we're going to share some questions about your presentation, but the truth is that we are impressed because it seems to be a short time, but you've done a lot in the region, and that development was very relevant for your local reality, so we're happy to share that. Now I'm going to pass the floor to Beatrix Bouwman. She is from South Africa. We are going to share her presentation. And let me briefly introduce Beatrix Bouwman. She is a colleague that we've also known for many, many years at CLAYSS. In fact, she has a degree, a master's degree in mythology from the university that is now known as the Johannesburg University, and an MBA from Northwest University. And she has a strong education in strategic management from Geneva University with local organizations. Currently, she is the Director of Sustainability at Northwest University, but she's also an active member, in fact, the oldest member of the South African Higher Education Community Engagement Forum, SAHISI, and she is the current president of SAHISI. That is precisely the organization that has promoted service learning in higher education in South Africa, but also with a strong impact in the region as a whole. She's very versatile. She has experience in the academic world, in research and microbiology, agriculture, business, sustainable development, technology transfer, and community engagement. She defines herself as a Da Vinci personality because she's an entrepreneur, she's very creative, and she uses the whole brain, lateral thinking and all that. And thanks to her scientific background and her community work, she's also very disciplined and task-oriented. We know her presentation is going to be very detailed, but she also feels a strong empathy for those people that try to develop their whole potential. So she's a great pioneer in the use of technology, and she has a strong vision about sustainable development. With Nieves Tapia, we were fortunate to participate in many meetings in 2012. I was also there in 2019 in the meetings they held at SAHISI to promote the participation of universities in the community development. So, Bibi, we are eager to listen to your presentation from South Africa.
Thank you very much for the introduction and the privilege to be part of the panel. We are really pleased to present to you what has been happening in South Africa. We don't have such a long history as you have in the South American countries, but like the previous speaker said, you know, if the will's there, you can do quite a lot. And I'm excited to share my presentation with you. Our recent development in service learning has been closely linked to community engagement, and you will see in my presentation that it is being integrated into what happens at public universities in South Africa. The organization that I'm presenting, we've got the acronym SAISEV, and we just announce it that way because it's easy on the tongue for us to pronounce, but it's not really the correct way of doing it if you use the various types of letters as they are written. So it stands for the South African Higher Education Community Engagement Forum, and we can proceed with the presentation. Do I share my screen or do you share my
As you
presentation?
wish. If you want to share it, just let me know. Do you want me to share it for you?
Okay, I'm going to share mine. Have you got it? Just quickly, South African Higher Education Community Engagement Forum, I'm the chair of this organization, but I'm also a member of the Northwest University. In our questions and answers, I want to give you just a quick spiel of how the network emerged, and it started post 1994 when there was a new dispensation that came into play in South Africa post-apartheid, and we actually then had to make adaptations to accommodate previously disadvantaged groups in South Africa, which was a really great thing, and various initiatives developed with the CHES HEQC timeline, and in my next slide you will be able to see what that was. So since 1994, the National Community Engagement Service Learning Initiative started. It was the Joint Education Trust and the Community Higher Education Service Partnership that worked very hard from 1994 to 2006 to implement several aspects of community engagement. And it was closely linked to community service, but with a meeting where the DVCs, the Deputy Vice Chancellors and the Vice Chancellors of Higher Education University organizations met in 2000, they decided to rather call it community engagement and not only service learning. What was important in that decision was that it had to be also included into the community service for higher education as a curricular event, specifically for community engagement. So we see service learning as a pedagogy or a methodology that is used to give well-rounded students that are civilly aware of their society. They make a contribution, they learn, and they bring the knowledge that they are sharing from the university and the new knowledge that they're creating in partnership with our external partners into the curriculum again, so that we've got curriculum renewal and relevance that comes forth. So there's been quite a lot of interventions, and you will see that there was a monitoring and evaluation tool developed by the Joint Education Trust. There was a draft community engagement policy submitted to the Department of Higher Education, and then later on, by the end of 2006, we then had our first higher education conference on community engagement, which was led by our minister, Lady Pandor, and she actually made sure that we all, and in the public universities, implement some form of community engagement. So after that, the National Community Engagement Management Forum was formed. Each university of the 25 universities that existed then met in 2008. They had appointed some community support management officers, in Stellenbosch, and they had a second meeting at the University of Free State. And then they decided that we needed to have a national body that actually coordinates all forms of community engagement. Now, the forms of community engagement does not only emphasize engaged teaching and learning, or service learning, as you call it, but also the volunteer aspects and the engaged research aspects. So the approach in South Africa includes both service learning and engaged research and partnerships that are key to this. And we formed an organization that could facilitate all of these aspects, not only the service learning aspects. And this was at an inaugural board meeting in December of 2009. So just starting out the journey, you will see there was a variety of people involved, and we actually had a formal announcement in one of our public newspapers, the Mail and Guardian, in December 2009. So how was it spread in our region? So this organization took it upon themselves to form a board, and each university was asked to have a representative appointed to the board. So we've got 24 formal board members from the public universities and one private university, Monash, which was the 25th one. And we had biannual board meetings with a secondus for the board member, and then also inviting practitioners of community engagement in the widest forms to be part of this meeting. So we formed working groups for community engagement, for volunteerism, for service learning, for research and partnerships. We focused mostly on capacity building and advocacy, making sure that everybody that was a stakeholder, for example, Department of Higher Education, the National Research Foundation, and other partners in the sector would be aware of what we're doing. We held our first conference in November of 2011, and then we also worked with the National Research Foundation, which is a key funder for research in South Africa, to fund community engagement. And we were privileged to have a conference with funded academics that were doing various forms of community engagement, not only engaged research in communities and with communities, but also service learning. During that time, we also had an international conference where we participated with the TAL1 network, and there was a strong link to the Goonie network as well. So there was many international partnerships that were formed through this process. And then lastly, in 2019, we also had a conference in Mpumalanga, which María Rosa attended. So our definition is very difficult to pinpoint because there is various forms of engagement that takes place, and a lot of it is structured around the context and the history of the particular university. Some universities are urban and some universities are regional, but typically we would say we would use the definition as is promoted by the Council of Higher Education Quality Committee. It is the criteria that is used for evaluating the outputs of universities in all aspects. And the service learning definition is applied learning, which is directed at specific community needs, and it is integrated into academic programs and the curriculum. So in this case, it could be either credit bearing and assessed, or it may just take place in a work environment. Now, some universities are very privileged and well set up in order to do really great community service learning aspects, and therefore they actually lend themselves to being the rock stars in community engagement. I can mention some of them: University of Pretoria, University of the Free State, Stellenbosch University, Rhodes University. Those are the universities that have really strong community engagement projects, but particularly in service learning. When we have service learning, there is always a link to the lectures as well as the curriculum. So a lecturer could give students an assignment to do community service, but they will also do reflection and go through the proper process of learning and what was learned in the co-creation of knowledge and solving community problems and challenges. So if you look at this, key to this whole process is the Triad proprietorship model, which was initiated by Joe Lazarus, who was working at the University of the Western Cape with JET. And we actually say that partnerships are key to this whole process. So we've got a variety of service providers that can be part of this as well. The higher education sector and the students and staff provide the community service, and the service providers could be students, government, private sectors, SMMEs, all sorts of other partners, as well as our third sector, which is our faith-based organizations, our community-based organizations, and our not-for-profit organizations. So if you look at how Glass and Fitzgerald placed community service learning in the sector of community engagement, so all of these in the stippled line circle is viewed as community engagement, but service learning is slap bang in the middle of the process where there's an interaction between the teaching and the service. So very strongly academically based, very strongly linked to the curriculum in order to also share the learning and make it a reality and practical for students to apply in the community. We've got two very important documents that were published by the Higher Education Quality Committee, the Good Practice Guide and Self-Evaluation Instruments for Managing the Quality of Service Learning. So there's very strong guidelines, and that was published in 2006. And then in 2016, we had a review on what had happened in higher education in general in the past 2 decades after becoming the new South Africa. So the findings were very interesting, that we had an integration into the system post-apartheid from a fragmented past to a variety types of universities. There were comprehensive universities, there were traditional universities, and there were universities of technologies that were established. There's really good quality assurance, and there's an advisory body that oversees that and do benchmarking. We've got a dedicated national department for higher education. We've got institutional landscapes that were changed to give access to a broader demography of students. There's better research output and also international recognition, and really good quality teaching and learning, and curriculum development and student support, and lots of governing frameworks and financial aid to students. But that is not enough. The community engagement has always been the stepchild of higher education, and we see that with sympathy as university leadership has got many balls to keep in the air. However, engaging with community partners can actually enrich the whole system. So what we found in CLAYSS was that when we started out as partners after the management forum formed the national forum, we started sharing our good practices, and then we formed partnerships, but we started integrating this into what we now do call scholarship of impact and engagement. So the kind of experiences that we think are representative of our priority issues are social justice, which is very much linked to a developing country, democratic imperatives, transformation, etc. Also, resourcing of community engagement and service learning has still been a problem. We do tackle service learning according to themes, like the example with the previous speaker, where there are educational themes, or there are health themes, or even geographical or demographical approaches for advantaged people or people with disabilities. And so there's a variety of programs depending on the type of university that we're working with. So we also link that to our National Development Plan, our integrated local integrated development plans, the SDGs, and the Agenda 2063 for Africa. What we see as critical service learning is the role of the university in promoting social justice issues, empowering communities, and developing capacity in economic development, and creating change agents through the students that are partnering with our communities through meaningful service. So our major challenge is still sufficient funding from higher education and partnering through companies that have to make a VE contribution through corporate social responsibility has been a great source for developing community engagement and service learning. But society society and employers and higher education still need service learning in order to transform. So I think that's what I wanted to share in a nutshell. I think it is really useful to get an idea of what is happening, and the greatest contribution has been the organized forum who could then coordinate and share best practices.
Thank you, Vivi, so much for sharing your presentation as, you know, a starting point in this conference, and from now on to keep learning about what you are doing in South Africa and in Africa in general, and keep learning from your experience. Thank you very much, and we definitely need more community engagement in our educational institutions. So we will keep moving around the world, and now I will ask Marietta Guanzon to prepare her presentation. I will give a short introduction about May, as we call Marietta Guanzon from Philippines, from the La Salle University of Manila. She has a master's degree in environment and, perdón, estaba hablando en inglés.
I apologize, I'm going to switch. She has a master's degree in environmental development from the Australian National University, and she has a diploma on management and development for research, also from the Philippines University. She is a coordinator of the service learning program and the Center for Social Concern and Action of the La Salle University in Manila. She coordinates service learning projects for undergraduate and graduate students, and she also coordinates service learning projects at the global level for international students. She has developed a guideline for service learning and numerous publications related to service learning, focusing on the framework for service learning in La Salle University. And in her university, she has been the representative at the Service Learning Asian Network. Before getting involved in La Salle University, she worked on different foreign projects in relation to the environment and minimization of risk in the case of natural disasters and health problems, working both with governmental and non-governmental organizations. May is going to share with us their vision of service learning. So May, please share your screen, and we are all ears to listen to you.
Thank you, Maria, for that wonderful introduction. Can you see my slide?
Perfect, thank you. Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, service learning in Asia. So, as you know, service learning is primarily a Western concept, a Western learning concept, but it has gained awareness across culture. Service learning has been increasingly adopted by educational institutions and social organizations in Asia and Pacific region. It has been widely used as a pedagogy among educational institutions in Asia, especially after the academic conference on service learning in Asia held in 2002 at the International Christian University in Japan, and has become the interconnection with other Asian higher education institutions. However, Asian countries realize the need to modify and adjust to the concept of service learning in the context of Asian situation, cultures, history, and language. So how service learning spread in Asia? Because of the following: social, economic situation issues in Asia, because of the national and local histories, diversity of religions, cultures, and languages, and the functional missions of educational institutions. So let me walk you through each of these. The social economic situation issues in Asian countries. First, the socioeconomic situation in Asia. Most Asian countries economy are characterized as developing, such as Japan, but several countries in this region are impoverished, such as Afghanistan, Cambodia, Nepal. So there is a wide variation of economies. Even in the same countries, there is a wide disparity between the rich and the poor. The poor greatly suffers when disaster strikes, as they do not have any means to recover easily. There are also problems related to environmental degradation, poor health, lack of access to education, food insecurity, and among others. According to the World Bank in 2018, 783 million are considered extremely poor, who live below the poverty line or $2 a day. However, 30% of that live in South Asia and 9% live in East Asia and the Pacific. Social issues influence the action, behavior, and lives of the people. Service learning gained ground because it understands the social context of the people. Next is the national and local histories. Most countries in Asia, like the Philippines, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, and among others, were colonized by the Europeans and the Americans. So colonialization has altered our social structure and brought modern and Western ideas. Also, Asian countries have recorded histories of political turmoil, such as civil wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, revolution, government destabilization, like what happened in the Philippines and Thailand. Further, in terms of education, universities in the past served the elites only, unaware of what is happening around them. So because of our historical past, we were able to understand the current situations and why service programs emerged. Service activities were contextualized in local histories and cultures. Next, the diversity of religions, cultures, and languages. Asian continent has very rich and diverse religions. We have Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Hinduism, and Islam. During the Western colonialization, indigenous peoples were converted to Christianity. Hindu faith, for instance, the concept of Dharma teaches the right conduct, righteousness, moral law, and duty. Further, Confucius' virtue explains that the purpose of learning was to become a responsible member of society. We also believe in a moral obligation that we have for one another. So somehow, innate in a cultural belief system, the care for other people in our society. Next, the functional missions of educational institutions. Most educational institutions, especially the faith-based schools, are designed to integrate instruction, research, and community involvement in their curriculum, and that these schools are assessed based on this. Universities and colleges in Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and other Southeast Asian countries have integrated community outreach or community service in their curriculum. Most of them are now drawing upon from the national and local histories, the functional missions, the existing socioeconomic needs to develop effective educational programs such as community service and volunteering, of course, in order to contribute in creating a harmonious society and to solve human problems, human sufferings, thus improving the lives of the people. Next, when and how did our network SLAN emerge? Since the 1970s, community outreach was identified as one of the most important areas of work for the United Board for Christian Higher Education, or the United Board. Between the 1970s and 1990s, the board supported many projects in colleges and universities that were designed to integrate instruction, research, and community involvement. Not only that, the board intended to educate students to be aware of the community situation, including poverty, social injustice, ecological and environmental problems, but also that community service must not resort to paternalism or dependency. So the goal of community outreach by the universities allow the full participation of people in the community through empowerment. So from the beginning, the United Board wants community outreach to be an integral part of a student's education rather than charity from Christian university to the needy. It was seen not as a distraction, but as a learning process and an enrichment of the educational process. So from 1990s, two institutions, the International Partnership for Service Learning and the United Board have been instrumental as catalysts in supporting development of service learning in Asia. United Board supported IPSL in the conduct of training program, development for the beginning of service learning, grants to the institutions to initiate service learning, setting up structures, conduct of conferences, training workshops. United Board also supported the promotion of service learning at the institutional, national, regional, and international levels. So over the years, numerous short and long-term projects were provided and supported by the United Board's program grants. Now, allow me to present to you the timeline of SLAN emergence in Asia. It started in 1999. The first service learning faculty workshop was held and organized by IPSL and hosted by the Trinity University in Asia here in the Philippines. As an outcome of this seminar, participants applied for and received grants from the United Board in 2001 to begin the actual work in service learning. In 2002, Service Learning Conference in Asia was held in the International Christian University in Japan with the theme Service Learning in Asia, Creating Networks and Curriculum in Higher Education. 2004, ICU set up the Service Learning Asia Network. So this is the birth of SLAN with support from the Japanese government and the United Board. And also in 2004, Lingnan University started Service Learning and Research Team. 2005, the first seminar dealing with the program research was held at ICU for SLAN members and Japanese institutions involved in some form of experiential education. The grant from the Japanese government made it possible to integrate research into the format of international service learning model programs. 2006, during the summer of 2006, a month-long program brought together 20 students and 8 faculty from 5 service learning SLAN countries to participate in a local communities in the Philippines. This was part of the joint program sponsored by ICU and Silliman University in creating the International Service Learning Model Program. Also in 2006, the third coordination conference with the theme on evaluation strategies and programs assessments was organized by United Board in Hong Kong. 2007, ICU hosted the second SLAN planning meeting. Also, it was in 2007 that the first Asia Pacific Regional Conference on Service Learning, or APRCSL, was held in Hong Kong. 2008, ICU hosted a research focus workshop. 2009, the second regional conference in Lingnan University. 2011, Lingnan University served as the SLAN Secretariat. And in 2014, in response to the catastrophic Typhoon Yolanda that hit the Philippines, the United Board organized for the first time the International Service Learning Program for the rebuilding of heavily devastated coastal communities in Tacloban, Philippines. It gathered around 120 staff and students from June 28 to July 11, 2014, and they participated in house building, reforestation, training, and other activities. 2016, SLAN meeting and workshop and planning was held in Hong Kong. 2017, the Singapore University for Social Sciences served as the new SLAN Secretariat. 2018, the 6th SLAN meeting was held in Dealership, Philippines, and with that symposium entitled Service Learning in Asia, Models and Best Practices in Course Design and Evaluation, attended by over 120 students and faculty. Just this year, due to the pandemic, instead of meeting in Taipei Medical University in Taiwan, the meeting was held virtually and attended by 50 SLAN members and TMU team. This time, the SLAN Secretariat is the Silliman University in the Philippines. As mentioned, there are yearly SLAN meeting and biannual APRCSL. As you can see, APRCSL was first held in 2007 at Lingnan University until 2013. 2015, this was done in Taiwan organized by Fujian Catholic University. 2017, the Petra Christian University in Indonesia. And just last year, the Singapore University of Social Sciences in Singapore. Hopefully, next year, 2021, Silliman will organize the APRCSL. Hopefully, it's face-to-face. No? So we're looking forward to this. So here is the list of Asian institutions with service learning. These are all members of SLAN, but except for the Australian university. So we have 13 countries and 46 universities and colleges in Asia. Most are members of SLAN. So the most numbers from Philippines, Taiwan, and China. So just the photos of the regional conferences held in Hong Kong 2007, Indonesia 2017, and Singapore last year, 2019. So what definition of service learning do you manage in your region? Even before the term service learning has been popularized in Asian countries, we use other terms like community outreach, social engagement, community service, community development, social service, public service, community engaged learning, field work, community work, scholarship of engagement, social enterprise practicum, internship, volunteering, on-the-job training. So all these have the same intention. That is to serve the society and doing something good to the people. I would like to share with you the result of our online survey initiated by SLAN Information System, which I'm also heading. Our committee conducted a survey among its member institutions to update our database and to share this information for future collaboration. Of the 39 active members, 22 responded to the online survey, and one of the questions we asked in the survey was their institutional definition of service learning. So based on the survey, many schools have adopted the Bringle and Hatcher definition of service learning. That is, it is course-based, it is credit-bearing, it is a form of educational experience, it is experiential learning, there is critical reflection, a form of civic responsibility, community-based, reciprocal partnership between faculty, students, community, and the institution. There is active community participation. It's a form of professional service, and it's a form of teaching and learning pedagogy. We also asked them about the features of service learning. So most schools who answered that indicated that service learning is credit-bearing. A significant number said that service learning is both credit and non-credit bearing in their school, while a few indicated that it is a non-credit bearing. We also asked them about their level of service learning institutionalization. So 50% have indicated that they have a separate office for service learning, while 45% with a university-wide service learning program like what we have here in De La Salle University, and one school with service learning at the department level. So the last question, what kind of experiences do you think a representative of the priority issues and ways of doing service learning in the region? So we have listed a few priorities and ways to address this. First is the increasing societal problems. So most of us live in a country where there are extreme poverty, discrimination like gender and race, environmental problems, aging, food crisis, and so forth. And we experience this every day. So as an academic institution, we try to understand these issues, analyze and try to reflect on this, and take action by helping address these issues. So in De La Salle University, we use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal as our development framework. So community projects are done to address at least one of the 17 goals. So projects related to education, poverty, environment, social enterprise. Next issue, the lack of repository for service learning researches and policy programs. We already have a committee on SLAN information sharing. All we need to do is continue and strengthen it. We started the creation of a database of SLAN members, and this was shared and will serve as basis for future collaboration. I remember during one of our SLAN meetings, Professor Schumer suggested the creation of a clearinghouse for each country, and SUSS already has established their clearinghouse. Next, some practitioners still lacks the conceptual and operational understanding of service learning. The difference, especially like the difference of service learning from other service program, how to integrate service learning in the syllabus, and how to prepare rubric for service learning. So we can address this concern through program and professional development for faculty and practitioner in the field. There are also schools in Asia offering certificate courses such as University of Santo Tomas, SUSS, Lingnan University, and other institutions. Next, the meaningful and expanded connection among Asian countries. This can be addressed through continuous student exchange program. So we want to explore other regions in the international service learning program other than Asia, of course. So we have more diverse experience among students. Next, United Board recommended the creation of a regional network for service learning, complementing the SLAN efforts, of course. This will also expand our connection and partnership with Asian countries in the region. Next, the lack of administrative and institutional support for service learning. Alignment of service learning in the institutional mission is the key here. This can be done through continuous education, training, participation in local and regional conferences to learn from the practice and experiences of other institutions. And last but not least, funding. It's one of our challenges. So financial support for the institution on the conduct of APRCSL and the international or global service learning program, because these two major events requires a lot of resources. So let me end my presentation by quoting one of the Lasallian brothers, Brother Michael J. Broughton, FSC, who is a staunch supporter of service learning. And he once said, if you want our students to be agents of social change, then right from the lessons of the classroom, they must learn why, and they must see its relevance. With that, thank you. These are the list of my references. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, May.
Thank you so much, May, for your presentation. That was very interesting, particularly to help us understand the importance of the social, cultural, political context that is directly related to development of service learning in each region. And I hope this is really good for the better development of each and every individual we work with. So thank you so much, May. From Asia, then, we are traveling to North America to share the presentation of Professor Timothy Stanton from the U.S. We want to thank him for having woken up so early to share this meeting with us. Professor Timothy Stanton has a background in human systems and organizations from Santa Barbara, California. He has multidisciplinary studies on education and human relations from the University of San Francisco. He's a teacher, and he has developed a varied range of training seminars. His background is very rich. Currently, he's a senior consultant at the Raven Associates in California. He has a long background in educational institutions of higher education as a professor of international studies in Northwestern University. He has also acted as a teacher and director of the Bing program that was developed in Cape Town in South Africa through Stanford University. He has also been at Queen's University in Canada, and he's had a very rich experience as a director and teacher at the medicine school in Stanford University. And he's been connected to all public services. He has received numerous awards and academic recognitions through different organizations, mainly the National Association of Experiential Learning on a couple of occasions, and he has also received recognition related to the promotion of service learning, both for policy development and to promote practice. Unfortunately, he has lots of publications, academic publications, and after you see his curriculum, you can have access to those publications to learn more about his vast experience, mainly in the United States, that he's going to share with us today over this virtual meeting. So, Tim, the floor is yours for you to share your presentation. Can you share your screen?
Thank you very much, Maria, Rosa. Oops. Coming, I hope.
We thank you for having gotten up so early in California to join us today.
I'm trying to get my screen to share. Sorry for the delay. Let's try it now. I've never seen this before, sorry.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
See.
Oh, great. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Let me get the slideshow up and we'll roll. Okay. Well, we've had a 50+ year history of service learning in the US, and very hard to boil down into a few minutes, but I'm going to race through a lot of material and then look forward to questions later on. And it's a great privilege to be with you all. I've already learned a tremendous amount from the other speakers and look forward to some exchange towards the end. So in the US, when and where did service learning begin? You might guess a higher education institution or perhaps community schools, such as Edina was talking about, but actually the answer is service learning began back in 1967, 68 in Tennessee in the Appalachian region at the Oak Ridge Institute of Nuclear Studies, which is where the United States government was developing hydrogen bombs. So a strange place to start something called service learning, but the lab director there, noticing that the local residents around the lab were not able to obtain employment in the lab, brought in two colleagues and said, set up a manpower, this is 60s language, pardon that, manpower development program to teach the local people in the area so they qualify for jobs at the lab. And these two fellows, Sigmund and Bill Ramsey, said, well, we need to find a teaching staff. And so they went to universities and they recruited students to come teach these training workshops. And they dubbed this program service learning. It's the first use of that term. And you can see in this quote from Ramsey kind of how they came to that. If you look back now over the 50 years of work in the US, I've seen a pattern of where we began at that lab with a real strong emphasis of service, community service, and if learning comes out of it for the students, that's great too. And then we moved with more emphasis on the learning, and the programs moved into education institutions. We went through what I call a parallel play period in which there was a lot of community service happening combined with academic or non-credited learning, but not much integration of the two. And it took years for that pedagogy to develop into what would be a capital service learning kind of pedagogy. And as it became more institutionalized in education institutions, a lot of us have now begun to feel the learning is overcoming the service in terms of what really counts and what's emphasized. How do we know all this? Because a couple of colleagues and I have been working on a service learning history project that we started in the early 1990s. It's an oral history project where we've been conducting interviews and collective storytelling and analysis started out with the early pioneers of the field, and then we brought in the kind of the next generations a few years ago. And all of that material is available in an online archive at Stanford, which I can tell you more about later on if you're interested. But what were the early motivations of the people who started this work? What we found is that they were trying to answer one or more of those three questions on the screen that had to do with the relationships between education, service, and democracy. And then if you look over this history, there are 4 or 5 waves of practice developing. In those early years, it was a bottom-up thrust by pioneers trying to connect study and service. It was very lonely and difficult work. And in that early pioneer group, which we convened in '95, most of those people did not come into the work through education. Most of them were community activists who saw educational resources as available and needed in their communities, and they went into the academy to liberate those resources and to bring them back to communities. These were early and difficult and sometimes dangerous innovations. A lot of people were fired from their jobs for doing service learning, which is hard to believe now. A second wave came about in the mid 1980s, and we were boosted by 2 major national curriculum reform initiatives having to do with pedagogy and public service in higher education. The curriculum reform initiative questioned both the content and passive didactic process of post-secondary teaching and learning and called for a more active, involving, or experiential pedagogy. And the movement for civic responsibility had identified that there was no means then for connecting classroom study with students' direct experience of social problems and issues. And we were failing to educate students with both an understanding of these problems and how to address them. So that enabled the practitioners to begin to push this work across the curriculum or curricula of their campuses with a major boost from Campus Compact, which was the evolving professional development network at the time. And we came to understand the work as academically based community service. And there was exponential growth. And institutions began setting up central centers for service learning and community engagement on their campuses. The fourth wave really began around the turn of the century when many of us began to think about research as a form of service learning. And then, of course, there was the worldwide movement of service learning across the world, which we've heard about this morning with regional networks. And I would think where we are in the US really now is in institutionalization and sustainability of this work through engaged departments, engaged institutions. We have a Carnegie Foundation classification system, which is actually going international now, and what Campus Compact calls civic action plans, which are getting institutions to commit to community development and community service overall. So how did our networks emerge? And notice I said networks because we have had many in the US over time. And I'm old enough to say I've been a part of many of them. But the first network really was a coming together of those early pioneers in the late 60s at a conference in Atlanta. It was a practitioner-based and controlled organization, very participatory and deeply committed to involving campus staff, community partners, and students. And their annual conference was like a summer camp for all of us, where we could really meet each other and learn from each other. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have colleagues often on our campuses. It was lonely work, and the network through this organization was extremely important. In '78, that organization joined with an internship organization to form the National Society for Experiential Education, which continued that annual conference and began to promote publications and literature, and active executive leadership to build professional development opportunities and training for the field and organizational alliances for education reform. The collaborative participatory culture of SFEE fell out of use and was replaced by a much more evolved formal conventional one, but it was a much stronger organization. In '85, as I said, Campus Compact came into being. It was a president's coalition addressing that public service reform initiative. Was founded originally to promote civic and volunteer service. They did not speak service learning language or promote it. So a number of service learning practitioners actually conspired and to lobby Campus Compact to expand their vision to include service learning. That work was successful, and the Compact organized a integrating service and study faculty development program with faculty institutes and conferences across the country, which is viewed as a major turning point in terms of the development and expansion of the work. There are now compacts in most US states as part of that network, but it is still a president's organization, even though it's evolved into the key professional development resource for the field. We also, in the mid-90s, had a government-supported network, Corporation for National Service, set up by first President Bush and continued through Bush II and Obama's administrations as the prime funder for many institutions for their service learning development and work. Critically important funding. Unfortunately, it's been vastly reduced and pretty much eliminated by the Trump administration. And finally, the International Association for Research on Service Learning and Community Engagement, started by Andy Furco and other colleagues in 2001 at University of California, Berkeley. This was a response to a widely perceived need by practitioners, scholars, and funders for stronger attention to and support of research and evaluation and field building. So there, as you can see, there's multiple strands to this network development, and they're quite diverse in where it came from and how it's been sustained, but they all struggle for sustainability. Definitions in the US, as in your countries, we have many, they're all over the place. If you look at them closely, which we don't have time to do this morning, you can see how they evolved in parallel with the development of the field. Starting in the 90s, we also embraced the Bringle and Hatcher academic service learning definition. The continuing and central claim is that service combined with learning adds value to each and transforms both. We've had service learning as civic learning, of course, research is service learning, and now international service learning, which is now being eclipsed by something we call global service learning, which is an acknowledgement that international service learning starts at home in your local communities as well, particularly with our globalized and networked world. With all this diversity, what's interesting about the work is people tend to describe it as it, if you listen to their conversations. And so whatever their emphasis is, there's always this it, as Dick Kudo reminded us, it is the big tent that keeps us together, regardless of the tensions among us. Representative experiences, well, a lot of us came into this work out of political activism work. Certainly I did, and I was not alone in that. My first professional work was in the community as a youth organizer, organizing students for volunteer work and social change work and political engagement. We were doing this work before we knew it had a name. But throughout the work, there's been this continuing question, is this charity or is it justice? And how do we think about that? But the big drive, of course, has been institutionalization of the work, getting a safe and sustainable place in the academy to sponsor it, and service across the curriculum has been the main means of doing that. Service learning as research. Some universities now have research, community service research institutions and departments on their campuses. So briefly, just to wind up, where have we been? Well, we've been working to build this work into universities and schools across the country, and we've been successful.
I think Tim is having internet connection problems. Okay, we will. He was doing his final. Él estaba compartiendo sus últimas.
He was sharing his conclusions. Apparently, he has had some connection issue. I will ask the technicians if you can please stop sharing Professor Stanton's screen. And now we are going to continue. Tim, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Tim? While we wait for this technical issue to be solved. Can you hear us, Tim?
Okay. Que puedes continuar, finalizar.
So can you conclude your presentation, or would you rather Enrique to take the floor and then you finish your conclusions, or would you like to go ahead now?
Okay. La última parte se congeló.
No, at the end you were frozen, but yeah, you can perhaps if you can repeat your last slide.
No, no te preocupes, Tim, simplemente.
Don't worry, Tim. We were able to see the screen, but we were not able to hear your final conclusions.
Ok, vamos a continuar entonces.
So we will continue with Enrique, Ochoa, and then we will go back to Tim's final conclusions then, okay?
You got the slide set up whenever you want to do that.
Ok, vamos a dejarla para el final, Tim.
We are going to leave that till the end, Tim. Now we are going to give the floor to Enrique Ochoa, who is the Executive Director at CLAYSS. Enrique Ochoa has a degree in Political Sciences from the University of Buenos Aires. He is an expert on international negotiations and relations. He is going to share his screen too. He graduated at the University of Buenos Aires. As I said, he's an expert on international negotiations and relations. And he also has a degree from the University of San Andres. He was a consultant for the Ministry of Education of Argentina, specializing in the promotion of service learning projects in different schools, higher education institutions, universities, and youth organizations. He has been working, providing assistance to different Latin American organizations. With the creation of CLAYSS as a civil society organization, he took over the role in international relations of the organization. He also coordinates activities in service learning and also of the Ibero-American Service Learning Network. He has been the executive director for a number of years already, and he is also a teacher at the University of Buenos Aires and also in the School of Social Sciences of Flaxo. So, Enrique, thank you, María Rosa, for your presentation. I would like to thank you all for joining us in this panel. I'm going to briefly describe my answers to these questions. I will start with a historical overview of service learning in the region. Then I'm going to focus on the Ibero-American network and the national networks, which in our opinion is the movement that promotes service learning in Argentina. I'm going to talk about our definition of service learning with its programmatic characteristics and some distinctive features of service learning projects in the region and in our country. As you know, many of you are Latin Americans, but Latin America is a vast continent with cultural, geographic, and socioeconomic differences. It would be too bold on my part to try to define service learning in Latin America with one single definition, because it is quite heterogeneous. But We have supported organizations, schools, and governments, and I think that we are in a good position to share with you some distinctive characteristics of service learning in the region. Like other speakers have done, I'm going to share with you a timeline. Our first points of contact with service learning happened a century ago. We didn't call it service learning at that time, but there was an idea of putting learning to the service of communities since the beginning of the last century. In 1917, the Mexican Constitution introduced social service as a compulsory component in universities. In 1918, in Argentina, there was a university reform movement that brought about changes and had as one of its pillars university extension activities to leave the classrooms in order to open the doors of the university to the community. And then we have experiences with the social service in Mexico, in Cuba, community service in Costa Rica, the compulsory service time in the Dominican Republic, that were the antecedents for this process. But the most important expansion of service learning happened in the last 3 decades. In the 1990s, several countries incorporated service learning as a compulsory aspect in secondary schools. That was the case of Colombia, Panama, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Pro-sociality and solidarity were promoted. In 1997, the first international seminar on service learning was held in Argentina. We are now in the 23rd edition of this seminar, but we have continuously held this seminar every year. In the year 2000, the first national program on schools and communities was launched in our country, and we founded CLAYSS in 2002 as the first center for promotion of service learning from Argentina to the rest of Latin America. We are based in Buenos Aires, but we work for Latin America as a whole. One major landmark has been the foundation of the Ibero-American network. Together with other 18 founding members in October 2005, we founded the Ibero-American Service Learning Network that is made up of more than 100 organizations, universities, and governmental organizations. This is the main tool for promoting service learning in the region. I would like to highlight some of its milestones. We produced the Ibero-American magazine on service learning. There was a special issue that we had with the University of Peru, but now this is a regular publication that has a formal structure of an academic journal. We organize also meetings of researchers on service learning, and we publish the minutes of those meetings. We have regional and international presence, and we also have 2 annual meetings. And from this Ibero-American network, national networks emerged. We have the Chilean Service Learning Network, then the Brazilian Service Learning Network, followed by the Uruguayan Network, and last year we had the Mexican Network. And we also interact with other networks in the region. Ursula is a network at the university level, the Taloirs Network, that is a Latin American hub. So national networks have given a lot of momentum to service learning in the region. And we have also sponsored or supported national awards and other recognition programs. In Argentina, since the year 2000, we have the ceremony to award the Presidential Prize to Service Learning in Argentina. In Chile, between 2004 and 2009, there was a bicentennial award given to service learning-oriented schools. In Ecuador, in 2009, there was a Presidential Award. In Uruguay, they are now in their 8th edition of Service Learning Contest. And for the first time this year, we have this kind of program in Brazil. And then we have the national conferences or the national seminars. Just like we hold our seminars every year, different countries have started to hold their own national conferences. In Chile, they started in 2012 with their service learning seminars. In Peru, they held national conferences between 2017 and 2019. The same applies to Uruguay, but from 2018. And this year, Mexico was going to have its national conference. So this has promoted and given a lot of momentum to service learning. So what about definitions? Like Tim said, we have a variety of definitions in Spanish throughout Latin America. And in CLAYSS, we focus on the 3 main components of service learning. Service aimed at providing in an effective manner what is needed to meet real needs that are felt with the community, and this is done together with the community, not just for the community. From an aspirational standpoint, we try to work not only for the community, but also with the community to try to address their perceived and real needs. We give an active role to students. They are the ones that are empowered and that lead the projects. And of course, there is a connection with the curricular contents that are related to service activity, curricular content, reflection, competence building, research. So there is this strong connection. So CLAYSS has adopted this definition with these 3 components. What are the distinctive features? If I had to make a list, of course, this will not be a complete list. Not all service learning projects have all these characteristics. But if we had to give a summary, we would say that first, there needs to be a strong institutional commitment to addressing local problems and also to establishing empathic connections with students and their communities. We need to solve the problems faced by the students' community. These projects also try to go beyond the idea of charity or assistance to effect structural changes, to work against the negative impact of rights that are not respected. In Latin America, we see service learning in all educational levels and also within social organizations, starting from different points of view. Sometimes this is a top-down approach, others it is a bottom-up approach with participation of some governmental organizations in some cases. There is always a component of tradition, the legacy that we have had for so many years, but also there is a lot of innovation in educational practices. And as I was saying earlier, we have a lot of terms being used. Not all practices are called or defined as service learning practices. The situation is quite heterogeneous. Another important aspect that I need to highlight is that we underline youth active role, their leadership, and also the leadership of the most vulnerable populations, because in Latin America, we have the most unequal region in the world. It is not the poorest one, but the most unequal region. most of our students have to deal with social and economic gaps. Now, in the context of the pandemic, these conditions are worsened. We see an effect on schooling, and we have also seen a deterioration of the socioeconomic condition of the population. So service learning projects in Latin America meet the needs of the most vulnerable communities with the leadership of those communities. So service learning projects take children and adolescents from their passive role of beneficiaries to turn them into leaders. They are placed in a proactive position, and some projects happen in situations of confinement with people who are detained in prisons. Others are carried out in very poor settlements. In Latin America, we say that no one is too young or too old or too poor or too rich so as not to be able to engage in service learning projects. Of course, you have projects of middle and high-level private schools that try to provide some service. But in all educational levels, we have service learning projects being carried out that try to address a community problem. At the same time, in Latin America, this is one way to understand knowledge. We had the 20th century debate between those that were engaged and versus those that were serious, as Tim was saying. Now we are talking about those the knowledge that is socially relevant versus the knowledge that is used as good, as a trading good. So in CLAYSS, we understand that we cannot transform reality without scientific rigor. We cannot be serious if production of knowledge is not socially relevant. So we need to be serious in our approach as teachers, as service learning actors, but we also need to have service learning at the service of our communities. In conclusion, service learning for us is closely linked to academic quality. For us, citizenship is something that you exercise, not that you claim that you do. Most of our societies underwent military dictatorships in the 1970s and the 1980s, and society still doesn't know how to fully exercise its rights. So it is not enough just to claim that we are citizens. We need to use strategies founded on service learning to allow citizens to exercise their rights. We believe that the more challenging and the more relevant the service component is, the more significant and meaningful the learning component will be, and the more relevant research will be. And we need to know more in order to change our communities, more than just to pass an exam. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Enrique, por tu...
Thank you, Enrique, for your presentation. And your presentation actually allowed us to complete our tour around the globe. So it was very interesting to see the different approaches that each of you has shared with us. And in the meantime, I have taken some snapshots of your presentations so we can share this overview you've given us. So we thank you for lending us your eyes and your brains for a while to share these thoughts together. So we've been able to create this global timeline as to when this movement started internationally. And although there have been different approaches regionally, or how the connections were established among the various organizations and how this educational proposal was developed, I think it's very interesting to see how different factors moved us to applying these initiatives so as to find an answer, a response to the different situations in our regions. And so I took some words from you that perhaps can help us think about how we can move forward and think of this global proposal. In Edina's presentation, the word connection resonated very strongly. This connection between learning and life, and how this connection between colleagues and peers is necessary and very applicable to this meeting, actually, to keep learning together. Basically, to be able to respond to this disparity and this diversity that May was mentioning, where beyond the differences in the definitions, there is no doubt that serving society and doing good for the others is what moves us all mainly. And this is what Bibi Bouwman also mentioned from South Africa. There are different ways for us to do this approach. And based on the analysis of the different institutional styles and the different realities, we can define how our proposal of teaching and the way we approach the community can be the right answer for the different challenges. I thought it was also very interesting what Tim mentioned, that with his long background and experience and the deep analysis that they conducted on the development of service learning in the United States, I emphasize the importance of this permanent balance that we have to achieve between service and learning, because although in different points in time, such as now in the times of a pandemic, service can be more relevant, but our objective as educational institutions and as organizations is to see how we can achieve quality learning so as to be mutually beneficial, service and learning, so as to improve our communities with equity and social justice. And from Enrique, and based on what we share at CLAYSS, we know that the word solidarity is a word that is very important in the way we approach service learning. And as Kike mentioned, it's very important to exercise it, not just to claim citizenship. So as citizens of the world, where we all need to provide this support, it's very important what you mentioned, of not just sharing our thoughts through publications and debates, but also putting these words into action. This is the proposal that service learning invites us to do so as to make a difference. The truth is that I thank you all so much for your interesting thoughts and comments that we shared in this meeting. We only have a few more minutes in case you would like to make an additional comment after the presentations to conclude this meeting. Of course, you are invited to take the floor if you would like. If anybody would like to share a final comment.
I will, thank you. First of all, Maria, Rosa, you are a wonderful listener. That is an amazing summary you did of our remarks. Very impressive and very helpful. So thank you for that. One thing I would like to say, which may have been the part of my presentation you missed, is that this question of balance between service and learning has been one that we've been debating for decades in the US, but increasingly a number of us now are thinking it's the wrong way to view this. And what we need to do is to think about service learning more simply as community development, and that if we put our 100% focus on the community impact of our work, or the citizenship of our work, or the solidarity of our work, that will structure and inform the learning and deepen the learning that our students will get out of it, and make it easier for teachers or practitioners who, for years, we've been walking this tightrope, trying to balance the learning and service in our courses and our programs. And I think there's a way now to think about, well, let's just go all the way for making a difference in the community, and the learning will evolve and erupt out of that in a much deeper way, and more focused way. And that doesn't say we shouldn't do all the other service learning in all the disciplines and departments in our campuses, but that we really need to, I think, to kind of take this community impact or citizenship or solidarity aspect of our work even more seriously than we have.
Okay. Muchas gracias, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you so much for your words. Yeah, you're right. We have to move forward. Is there any other comment that you would like to make? Edina, Kike, Beatrix. Go ahead, Bibi.
I would like to just add to what Tim has said. I think you can utilize service to develop your community, whether you do it through service learning or whether you do it through community engagement. The important part of this process is to create change, and change must be measured and monitored so that you can actually determine what the impact is in the longer term, not only for the students and for the university, but majorly for the communities that need it so much. And I think that's a thinking that has come through from South African groups. We call the whole process of a university contributing to development the scholarship of engagement now. And so it includes the research part as well as the service and the volunteering part. Although we realize that universities are institutions for learning and research and not NGOs. And the emphasis therefore is creating new knowledge in partnership with our external communities to address their needs, which are in many cases the wicked needs, which requires trans and multidisciplinary contributions. And we're seeing a strong movement in that direction.
Muchas gracias, Bibi.
Thank you, Bibi. Thank you so much.
Sí, Mary. Adelante.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, as a faith-based organization, we're always guided, of course, by our faith, our foundation. Like for us, LaSallians, we are guided by the See Judged Act, a cycle developed by Cardinal Cardine. And for us, LaSallians, we have our own version of See Judged Act. We call that LaSallian Reflection Framework. So where we see and experience, try to understand the situation of the community by visiting them, interacting with the people. And then not only that, after seeing, experiencing the people, we try to analyze and reflect on the root causes of these problems. And then we try to commit and take action by implementing need-based projects. So that's a cycle, and it's a continuous process. And we're, as an institution, as a faith-based organization, we always try to remember that we put action because we want to address problems based on the things that we've seen and learned and understand from the people.
Excelente aporte, May.
Excellent contribution, May. Thank you so much. Edina?
For us, at the end of the day, what's important is the change of behavior and meaning to reflect on the values and the ways how and make decisions how I, as an individual, wants to live and to contribute to what. And this is what Beatrix was saying about the change. So for us, maybe what Tim is saying is a little bit colored by the context and current situation within the countries or the world. It's not a very good situation. So we have examples of community development. We have examples of project-based learning. And yeah, it's good to have this diverse toolbox which you can use, which is more suitable for something that you want to create as a change, and that is this change of behavior, habits, and ways how I live and act in the community and on the planet which is my home. So for us, this is a great way, great tool to move teachers, thus the students, out of this comfort zone, because very often we see a lot of projects that we clean the community, we clean the river, and then after after time goes by, you see it's happening again. So, but in this case, using service learning and listening and learning how to listen, what's community and where is the boundary of the community, who is there, how to find what is most needed. It's very beneficial for our schools and for our teachers, because it really gives them the opportunity to think what is the meaning of the content and the goals that I as a teacher need to develop or fulfill in school, in community where school is. So yeah, needs very clear what is the change or impact I want to develop, and you can use different tools, but for me, service learning is excellent way to really make greater change. Yeah.
Exactly. Perhaps I just have another comment. When I presented for Latin America, I said this is aspirational. The aspiration is for service learning to be that. We know it's not always the case, and we know that there are processes. Not all processes start perfectly like that. But it's clear that we face the challenge, the generational challenge. I'm still young, I feel young, but in the current generations of students, they're very clear about the climate issues, social issues, the rights, much more clearer than previous generations, I think. So the challenge today is what tools we have to teach in our schools, in our universities, or to lead social organizations confronting these demands. So this demands that the way of transmitting knowledge or teaching can no longer be the classic method. It has to be by solving the specific needs, and our students are very clear about them in general. But accompanying them, and this is key, as Bibi and Edina mentioned, having a concrete diagnosis of the community, because the other risk is to believe that in the classroom we have the answer because we know the questions. But sometimes that is not the case. So that combination has to be taken into account when we promote service learning. So thank you so much to all of you for your contributions. Personally, I would stay with you. I will talk with you for hours and hours, because it's great to hear the different views of those that are making a difference. That's a pleasure and a luxury for us today. So I would just like to close this meeting thanking you, and by sharing what we always repeat at CLAYSS, that is, learning serves, serving teaches, but service learning changes us and helps us change and make a difference to try together to achieve more fraternal and solidarious world where we can have more spaces to share, and particularly to continue doing this service learning. So thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch. Bye-bye. Thank you.